What is the strongest formation in the world? Is it the phalanx, the wedge, or maybe the circle? No, we think it's this one. Because when the Roman army deployed their Testudo Formation, they became an unstoppable Iron Tortoise. This turtle-like battle formation made Roman legions almost impervious to missile attacks and allowed them to advance steadily towards fortified positions, walls or gates, or even charged across open fields in the face of heavy enemy fire. And that's exactly what this formation was designed to emulate. By aligning their shields on all sides and overhead, Roman soldiers formed a protective shell around themselves. The structure was simple. The front row of soldiers held their shields forward in the traditional Roman fashion, with the left side of their shield overlapping the right side of the shield in front of them. This created a wall of overlapping shields in the center, which was then mirrored on either side, as each shield's rim was designed to interlock with the shields around it. Soldiers could lean out to the sides to extend their shield's coverage, protecting their exposed flanks. Finally, the soldiers on the top row held their shields overhead, giving the formation its iconic tortoise shape and covering the heads and faces of the soldiers below against missile fire from the enemy. Testudo's purpose was to provide near-complete protection against enemy missiles, things like arrows or rocks being flung from catapults. By closing the gaps between their shields, the Romans could nullify the effectiveness of the most common type of ranged attack, making it much easier to advance under a hail of arrows, stones, or other flying objects. Testudo was a tactic commonly used during sieges, allowing the Romans to slowly and steadily approach enemy fortifications while minimizing casualties from defenders returning missiles. But it was also used effectively during assaults on enemy fortifications, allowing the Romans to crash through gates or scale walls with much less loss of life. In fact, this siege work was one of the primary purposes of the Testudo. As the eagle that you see on the front of many Roman legionary helmets was actually a siege tower. The Romans would use these towers to batter down gates, and then the soldiers would follow up with the Testudo Formation to keep the defenders from spearing or stabbing them as they scrambled up the ladder and over the top of the wall. Also, the Testudo was useful when crossing open fields. The Romans could form the Testudo in the face of heavy enemy fire and advance steadily towards their objective without losing momentum. In this way, the Romans could bring their superior firepower to bear while advancing, all while being very safe from the enemy's return fire. The strengths of the tortoise were many. It provided excellent defense against ranged attacks. It boosted unit cohesion, and it gave the soldiers a morale boost. After all, there was nothing more inspiring to a Roman soldier than the sight of his comrades locked in a tight defensive formation, moving forward in the face of danger. There was also a psychological aspect to the formation. The Testudo inspired fear in the hearts of the enemy, for how could such a disciplined and coordinated unit be stopped? Of course, no military formation is perfect, and the tortoise had its share of weaknesses. First, its movement was slow, which made it vulnerable to being flanked by cavalry or light troops. To prevent this, the Romans would often deploy 2 or more Testudo formations side by side, turning the entire flank into a turtle. This made it much harder for enemy forces to get behind the Romans. Another weakness was the fact that the Testudo was difficult to maintain on uneven terrain. In hilly or forested areas, the formation would often break down, leaving the soldiers exposed. For this reason, the Testudo was primarily a tactic used in open terrain. In spite of its weaknesses, the Testudo Formation was one of the most iconic and enduring symbols of Roman military might. It was used by the legions for centuries, from the 1st century BC to the 4th century AD. Other armies would copy the Romans and deploy their own versions of the tortoise, such as the Greek hoplites and the medieval English and French infantry. Today, the Testudo Formation stands as a testament to the Roman ability to combine discipline, coordination, and engineering in the art of warfare. It was a simple yet effective tactic that allowed the Roman legions to steamroll through their enemies, one shield wall at a time,